Hey, this is part 2. So, Olivia and Peter go to Massa Dynamic because Astrid said that there was someone else researching the symbols that the observers used. So, they go to Massa Dynamic, and the scientist explains to them that the observers are just like observing time. Like, they're not traveling through time, they're just observing it. And he shows them all these like old pictures, like from like 5,000 years ago, and they have the observers like hidden in the background. And he says that there's been 24 occurrences in the last 5,000 years, but there have been 26 in the last 3 months, so that's kind of weird. And he goes to this restaurant, and there are like multiple observers, probably like 3 or 4, I think, and they're talking, and they see these photos of Christine, and they don't realize, like, oh, why is she so important? Why did he save her? He's causing irregularity because he's interfered. And then they use their strange observer phone, and they call this dude, and he's like has a bunch of groceries, and he sees the little phone thing, and it has these 4 dots on it. So he goes to his car, and they fax a picture to him of Christine, and then he takes out a gun, so he's an assassin. Yep. And in Allston, Massachusetts, Olivia and Peter, they go to Christine's house, and they're talking to like her good friend, and she's like, oh, she's supposed to be in Rome right now because she was studying something about pottery and ceramics and stuff. And then Peter sees this photo of Christine's family when she was like really little, and she's like, oh, it's a terrible story actually. And when they went to San Francisco, they were driving in a car, and there was a big earthquake, and the whole bridge collapsed, and both her parents were killed. So yeah, and then he looks in the picture, and it's like, Olivia, look at this. And not way in the background, but behind Christine's dad, the observer is there. So he's been like watching her this whole time, like through her entire life. And he goes to the hotel room where Christine's all like bound and gagged and stuff, and then she keeps like trying to break free, and finally she like falls onto the floor and she breaks the ropes, but then the observer walks in, and he's like, I thought you might be hungry and stuff. And so he takes her and puts her back on the bed, and like he removes her gag, but he looks at her wrist and he's like, you've hurt yourself and stuff. But then he's like, I'll show you why I took you. So he turns on the TV, and it's like the news and a report, but it's not like related to why he took her. And then it shows a report about this plane that crashed, which is the flight she was supposed to be on when she went to Italy. So he saved her, because if she went on that plane, she would have died. So yeah, he didn't like kidnap her just for bad reasons or whatever. He saved her. So then at the same time, Peter and Olivia are talking in the car about how like she's sad that she had to ruin Ella's day because they couldn't go to the amusement park or whatever. And then on the radio, it's like, oh, the plane crashed and almost all passengers were killed and stuff. So they're like, oh my gosh, that's the flight that Christine was supposed to be on. And yeah, sorry, I have to scroll through this thing because and they go to the lab, and they're like, oh, so why did the observer save her? How did he know all this like way before this even happened? And then Walter says that the blood isn't really blood at all. It's like this chili pepper juice from this like extremely spicy chili pepper, but it's not grown. It's not illegal to grow it here or something. So they must have grown it somewhere, but it's illegal to import it. So they tried to find like where they imported the peppers in Boston, and they find 3 restaurants and 1 person that remained anonymous. So they go back to the restaurant, and August goes to the table where the 3 observers are, and they're like, you have to explain yourself. Why'd you interfere? We never interfere. And he said that, oh, I've watched her her whole life, and I know she's important or whatever. And they're like, you cannot interfere. The only time we interfered was to correct a mistake of our own making and stuff, which was when he saved Peter and Walter. So they're like, since she's not important, then he has to kill her because that was her fate or whatever. And so that's why they sent the assassin. So Olivia sees the address of the person who ordered the peppers anonymously, and the assassin goes to the apartment where, at that same address where the peppers were ordered to, and on the wall there's all these photos of Christine, like, throughout her whole life. It's kind of creepy, but I guess it's to save her and whatnot. So then Walter goes to this restaurant, and August is there, and he's talking to him because he decoded some message that told him to come here, and he's like, please don't take my son, I beg of you, don't take my son. And he's like, that is not why I contacted you. And he said that he needed his help because even if they stop the assassin, then they're just going to send more assassins to kill Christine because they don't know that she's important. But he senses that she's important, but he just can't explain it because he just sees it. He just knows she's important, but he doesn't know why or how. And Walter's like, you have to prove to them that she's important. You have to make her important. Because he came to him for help because he sees beyond the limitations of his problems or something like that. So he decides he has to make her important, but he has to be prepared for consequences. And Peter and Olivia go to the apartment, and they find this newspaper, and then it goes back to the motel, and the observer is like ungagging Christine. August is ungagging Christine, sorry. And he's like, do you trust me? And she's like, yes. And he's like, then you must do exactly as I say. So then it goes back to the apartment. Sorry, I have to keep switching between this, like, back and forth, but this is just in the order it happened and whatnot. So they're like, what are they looking for? And then they get a call, and they said that someone spotted the observer at this motel. So they go to the motel, but the assassin gets there first, and he, like, bursts through the door, and he doesn't see anything. So he's, like, looking around with his gun, and then suddenly August, like, bursts out of the door, the closet, and he just, like, shoots him with this awesome, like, weird, like, energy gun thing, and, like, blows him back. And then the observer like, runs out because the assassin got up, and so he's running after them. And then he's like, I know you know where the girl is, you know where she is, where is she, and stuff. And then Peter and Olivia come, and then the assassin, like, shoots the observer. He shoots August a bunch of times, and then August falls over, and he's about to die. And then Olivia goes after the assassin, and then Peter goes to the observer, and August is like, take it, or whatever. And then he puts the weird gun thingy in Peter's hand, and then Peter gets up, and then Olivia sees that the assassin is on the roof, and she's with her gun. But then suddenly Peter, like, shoots the assassin with the big thing, and he falls over off the roof and, like, through these trees and stuff. And it was awesome. And sorry, scroll through again, blah blah blah. And then they run down, and they see August's hat, but his body is gone, which is freaky. And then Olivia goes into the motel room, she's like, Christine, Christine, but there's no answer. And then she looks around, and then she looks like, she pulls up the mattress, and there's Christine lying there. So they found her. Yay! And then it goes to the observers in this car, and sorry, I gotta stop it right now, I would finish it, but the part's, like, too long, so see you at part 3.